Joining me now from our bureau in Washington, D.C., former Assistant Secretary of State under the Reagan and Bush 41 administrations and spokesman for the Association of Mature American Citizens, AMAC, Robert Charles. Robert, I think it's very, very dangerous to assume. We're hearing a lot of people on television come on and say, well, I think that this was just a warning shot. Oh, yeah, a couple of these missiles landed in a field or on a fence, what have you, that Iran pinpointed these missiles to miss American assets, American targets, American servicemen and women. I think it's very, very dangerous to conclude that it's reckless, and I think it's giving Iran way too much credit here. Yeah, they hit oil fields in Saudi Arabia, but these are targets you frankly can't miss.
Yeah, so let me back up one step and say I think the president's speech, which addressed this to some degree, was exceptional. I think it was an inflection point. I think he took a page from Ronald Reagan, and I think everybody should see that very clearly. What he did, he's speaking to the Iranian people. He made it clear that their government has no legitimacy. He advocated in the clip you just used the notion of peace through strength, which is essentially strength creating deterrence. He was decisive. He told the Europeans, in effect, I want you to line up behind us against evil. And he also said we don't need Middle Eastern oil. With respect to the launch of those missiles, you know, I think it was probably good fortune and the dispersion of troops that allowed us to avoid any casualties. But I also think any time Iran or anyone else launches a ballistic missile, you have opened the door to a potential reprisal. I have to credit this president. He continues to exceed expectations and surprise me every day. But one of the ways he does that is he's been very deliberative here, very Reagan-esque, no precipitous escalation. He's been methodical. And I'll also note, for anybody who wants to, like the Democrats you were just noting before, defending the opposite position, Soleimani was the epitome of evil, sort of at the pinnacle of the Quds Group, which is at the pinnacle of IRGC, which is at the pinnacle of Iranian terror aspirations and nuclear aspirations. And this is a guy that actually planned and helped execute the Marine bombing, the Marine barracks in Lebanon years ago under Reagan. So there's no excuse for any criticism of the president on this. I'll also add there's a term of art in the military, bluff. You know, you put the bottom line first. And I'll just tell you right now, the president started his press conference by saying, Iran will not be allowed to have nuclear weapons. That is the bottom line first, and I think it's wonderful to hear it from this president.
It's a very important message to the Iranian regime, but also to the world, for that matter. It's also a message, by the way, to Kim Jong-un and other potential enemies of America, that we have a president of the United States who's going to draw a line, and he's going to stick to it. And he also mentioned that the days of tolerating terrorist activity from Iran are over. And that's a very, very important message. But we also have to look at what did happen there. These missiles did rain down. It's a foreign country. They rained down in Iraq. They don't have the robust missile defense system that we have in this country, but it's a great example, I think, of why we still need to continue to build a robust missile defense system in this country. It's a great example of why we need to be careful, and we need to have a well-defensed United States mainland. These were probably short or medium-range missiles, Robert, but eventually ICBMs. If we allow Iran unfettered ability to continue to develop its missiles, as Barack Obama did during his 8 years in the presidency, ICBMs aimed at New York and possibly, in the end, San Francisco and Los Angeles are in the future.
Yeah, so you're right again. One of the things that's really implicit in the statement that the president made at the front end of his speech, saying that we would not tolerate nuclear weapons, is that we would also not tolerate the delivery systems for those nuclear weapons, which would essentially be ICBMs. You're right again that we have to have a ballistic missile defense that is robust, impenetrable. And again, if you go back to Ronald Reagan, that's really where that idea started. People mocked the idea of a strategic defense initiative, but that's exactly what we need, and that's what he initiated at the time. End of the day here, you know, this was the dropping of a rock in a pond, and that sends ripples to every shoreline in that pond. China's watching this, Russia's watching this, North Korea's watching this. Many of the actors in the Middle East who would be malign actors are watching this, and they see a president for the first time in a couple who is intensely focused on stopping Iran from getting nuclear weapons, and is decisive, and is also measured. And that I don't know that we can ask more than that from a commander-in-chief. Our best commanders-in-chief have been those things.
But at the same time, opening up the door for negotiations and possibly the art of the deal. I don't know how we negotiate with terrorists. I don't think it's possible. And that's, of course, another axiom of the great Ronald Reagan. But the bottom line is this president left the door open. As hard as the stance he's taking against Iran, he left the door open for possible negotiations. Robert, thank you.
Want to see more videos like this? Click on the link below and subscribe to One America News on YouTube. And call your cable provider and kindly demand that One America News is added to your lineup. Call and subscribe today.